Hey, it's Thursday. Awesome. And coming up here, 8 o'clock. So, I've got my coffee today. I just, I'm not a heavy coffee drinker. I have it in the morning, that's it. Occasionally caffeine later in the day, but never after 2 or 3 or I'm up late. I don't know about you, but I'm sensitive to it. So tonight, it's a little bit of decaf, a little bit of peace and quiet on the outside, parked next to the bug, and my Joy. And so all is well. Really had an interesting week last week with Joy getting hurt. I didn't get a lot of sleep, made some not enough sleep, bad decisions, and so I've got some time off from those bad decisions. Rats. But I might have had it anyway, you never know. God works things out, right? Romans 8:28, all things work out for those who are following after him. Not for everybody, but it just says for those who follow after him that are called according to his purpose. And it's their purpose for themselves, for me, according to my purpose, not someone else's purpose for me. Anyway, it's been a heck of a week, taking care of Joy, making sure she's all set. She's really been through it, and the ankle is still hurting, but the temporary cast is off. Now she's wearing a boot and she can get in the shower, take the boot off and things like that, so that helps life be a little better. And we're working on just what we're gonna do next. Thank goodness we had a scooter, and today is Proverbs 11. I remember to wear my mosquito stuff too, because I'll tell you what, I get welts from mosquito bites. Some people, they don't even bother them. Me, I don't know, it didn't used to bother me, now it does. So a lot of times when I work outside, I don't know about the rest of you, but you start a little campfire, just a little bit of wood burning and some smoke, and the mosquitoes leave you alone. And I always feel good about that. I like working outside and there's a campfire crackling nearby, burning some wood, burning some cardboard, getting the area cleaned up, scraps, leaves, twigs, everything. I just like doing that. That's my relationship thing. I feel like I'm kind of a relationship person like that. I'll tell you, the best conversations and the best friends that I've had were around a campfire. So Proverbs 11, and we're going to go one more place today. That would be 2 Corinthians, the last chapter, chapter 13, to talk a little bit about just being honest about our faith. Woo! So, Proverbs chapter 11. Today, dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes shame, but with humbleness comes wisdom. The integrity of the upright will guide them, and the perversity of the unfaithful will destroy them. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but the righteous are delivered from death. The righteousness of the blameless will be direct will direct his way right. But the perversity of the unfaithful, but the wicked will fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright will deliver them, but the unfaithful will be caught by their lust. When a wicked man dies, his expectation will perish. And of course, his expectation, that word right there, means planned future, and also the expectation of what he's doing going on, a legacy possibly. And the hope of the unjust perishes, but the righteous is delivered from trouble, and it comes to the wicked instead. The hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge the righteous will be delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city prospers. When the wicked perish, there is jubilation. He who is devoid of wisdom despises his neighbor, but a man of understanding holds his peace. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is faithful spirit of a faithful spirit conserves and not conserves, conceals a matter. Where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. He who is surety for a stranger will suffer, but one who hates being surety is secure. That's talking about being a backup, a co-signer. Let's put it that way. Let's say, he who is a co-signer for a stranger will suffer. Doesn't that make more sense putting it that way? I like that. But he who hates being a co-signer is secure. A gracious woman retains her honor. Ruthless men retain riches. The merciful man does good for his own soul, but he who is cruel troubles his own flesh. The wicked man does deceptive work, but he who sows righteousness will have a sure reward. Righteousness leads to life, so he who pursues evil pursues it to his own death. Those who are of a perverse heart are an abomination to the Lord, but the blameless in their ways are his delight. Though they join forces, the wicked will not go unpunished. That's something important to think about. Even when the wicked join forces, they will not go unpunished. But the posterity of the righteous will be delivered. As a ring of gold in a pig's nose, so is a lovely woman who lacks discretion. The desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. There is one who scatters, and yet he increases. And there is one who withholds more than is right, but that leads to poverty. The generous soul will be made rich. He who waters will also himself be watered. The people who curse, who withhold grain, but the blessing will be on him, on the head who sells it. He who earnestly seeks good finds favor, but trouble will come to him who seeks evil. He who trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like foliage, grow like a weed. He who troubles his own house will inherit the wind. The fool will be a servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who wins souls is wise. If the righteous will be recompensed on the earth, how much more will the ungodly and the sinner be paid back? Wow. That's Proverbs 11. I'm going to flip over to 2 Corinthians. It's the last chapter of 2 Corinthians. Corinthians is very good training book. God's really teaching the churches how to move in the Spirit, walk in the Spirit, and teaching the Corinthian church for 2 chapters. For two books. Very serious teachings, basics of Christianity, basics of the move of Christianity and the move of the Spirit and being filled with the Spirit, and what's the difference between walking in the Spirit, walking in the flesh, what's the difference between the gift of the Spirit or just the gift of tongues. Is there a difference? So many things are answered in 1st and 2nd Corinthians on all that. And the cicada, that's the first one I've heard this year. And of course this year they were threatening billions of them in some parts of the country. There's the 17-year cicada, and then there's this 150-year cicada or something like that. So we're waiting, but thank you, Lord. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. So anyway, chapter 13, verse 5. Well, I'm going to introduce verse 5 with verse 4. For though he was crucified in weakness, he lives by the power of God. So I think what he's trying to say here is that from an onlooker's point of view, if he was God, he wouldn't have let himself be crucified and killed. If he had any power, he wouldn't have let himself be whipped and torn and crucified. Why, he'd have just moved a finger if he was really God and not let all that happen. And so people would almost consider him weak. Even Moses was called one of the most meekest men ever, yet he was in charge of everything. So contemplate in your mind here how God is saying, it looks like weakness, but it's strength, because it is by his power. For though he was crucified in weakness, yet he lives by the power of God. See, though he was killed, he now lives by the power of God. So they're saying, yeah, he lived in the flesh, he lived on the earth, he was killed, now he lives by the power of God, not by his flesh. For we also, and here's the fun part, we are compared to Christ here. We are compared to be like him. We are with him. We are part of him. He is part of us. This is coming together here. For we also are weak in him, but we shall live with him by the power of God towards you. So, once again, where does the power of God come from? It comes from admitting weakness. It comes from saying, I can't do this. God, you do this. I cannot be righteous. I cannot make myself righteous. God, you have to make me righteous. And that's what God likes. When you tell God, I am unrighteous, I am unworthy, I need you, that's when he loves to step in. He's not interested in helping someone that's full of pride and thinks they can do it themselves. And one of the things that I've taught on before is you can't take one of the stripes of Jesus. Oh, I got this stripe, Jesus. I'll take this stripe. You know, you got the rest. I'll take this one. Jesus is like, no. Either I take all of them or none of them. You can't claim that you helped me. You can't claim you took a stripe, you know, and you were any help at all. You are no help at all. That's how I felt he was talking to me. You are no help at all. Don't you try to take my stripes. Those are mine. I'm taking them. They're for me. And you couldn't have bore a single one. All right. So, we shall live in him by the power of God towards you. Which means, and that word towards you is also back here in a few verses back, where it says, Christ who was not weak towards you. So he's kind of introducing Christ as powerful in ministry, power towards people, submitting to the cross as though he might have been weak, but he shouldn't have been. And then now we are saying, okay, we are weak, we can't do this, but then that's when the power comes to us. As we try to do it ourselves, oh, Jesus, I got this. He backs off. Okay, you got it. You got it. Go ahead. Give it your best shot. When you're done giving it your best shot, come on back and repent, and I'll take you back and we'll do it together. Because verse 5 is very important. Verse 5 says, examine. Examine yourselves as to whether you are in faith. Test yourself. Do you not know yourselves that Jesus Christ is in you? Unless, of course, you're disqualified. Which, of course, if you have Jesus Christ in you, you are qualified. But if you only think you do, or you're trying to act like you've got Jesus in you and you don't, then you are disqualified. So what's he saying here? Examine yourself whether you are in faith. What does that mean? Well, are you saying, I got this? Or are you saying, we got this? Are you saying, I can do this, Jesus, I got it from here? Or are you saying, I can't do this, Jesus, you've got it from here? At which point, Jesus can help. Indeed, you are disqualified, but I trust that you will know that we are not disqualified. How do you do that? How would you disqualify yourself? I thought, well, you can't lose your salvation. Well, I suppose you could walk out of it if you want and refuse it, but you can't disqualify yourself. So why is he saying you can disqualify yourself? Well, he's talking about disqualifying yourself from faith, because I'll tell you, it's real subtle. Even the smallest little thing will get you off track. Something very tiny. Will you start to handle something yourself that you don't turn over to Christ? You know, oh, Jesus, you got me here, but over here, I got this. You know, I'll handle the family, Jesus. I'll raise my kids, Jesus. I'll deal with my wife, Jesus, you know, not you. And that's what we're missing. We're not looking for Jesus to run our lives. We are looking for Jesus to run through our lives, to show up for us when we need him, to make a difference, to do the healing, to do the help. It's him that does the healing. It's him that does the counseling. It's him that does the word and the understanding, not us. It's just him. He's the one. And I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, well, you know, okay, you helped me out of this situation. Now I've got to do the rest. No. You see, every day we have to examine ourselves. Am I in faith about this? Am I in faith, or am I trying to do it myself? So I want to encourage you, and that's basically what I wanted to say. Examine yourself, whether or not you're in faith. Are you trying to do it, or are you relaxing, having a little sip, and saying, Jesus, you got this. I don't got this. Hey, listen, don't tell me it ain't happened. I do it. Everybody does it. Real subtle at first. Oh, we would never reject Christ. But yet, are we rejecting Christ when we say, well, no, you can't handle this, I'll handle this? Are we rejecting Christ when we decide who we're going to marry instead of having him decide who we're going to marry, or who we're going to be with, or where we're going to live? Are we all of a sudden, Joy and I are looking for a home. Here's a good example. I asked the Lord for the money to buy a home, but I also say, Lord, if you give us a home and work it out, and someone is, that you've talked to or spoken to gives us a home, the way we were given a car and given other things. If you do that, Lord, if you give us the money, it's more difficult, because now we don't know for absolute sure. Are we buying the right home? Is this home going to be flooded? Is something going to happen? Do we have to say to ourselves, oh, we bought the wrong place? Could we possibly make that mistake? But if the Lord gives you, or gives us a home, works out a home for us to have, that is just a miracle, then it doesn't matter what happens. Doesn't matter how hard the wind blows. We didn't make the decision to live there. No trees are coming down on us. No floods are happening to us. We didn't decide to live here. God decided we'd live here. And even if something did happen, we would say, this is part of what God got us going through, because he made that decision. So backing that back up to, am I in faith? Well, that's where you have to be careful. Because if you're waiting for God to give it to you, you really don't need to. You need the faith to receive it. But then you also get faith to know that no matter what happens, God gave this to me. No matter what happens, God gave me my wife. He did this. He gave her to me. Therefore, it is not up to me to decide, oh, well, this is over. Well, I'm done with this. Did God give you your wife or not? Did God give you these children or not? You better decide. That kind of thing. Hey, so my wife is my love, but she's also my assignment. And she is also the daughter of God that I have been given charge to take care of. Come on, fellas. What if all God wanted us to do to get the well done, good and faithful servant was to love our wife and to take care of her all her days, or on all of our days? What if that was all he really considered necessary for good and faithful servant? Now, you and I know it's going to be more than that to that. There's going to be a lot more to good and faithful servant than just one thing. But what if it is? What if that was one of the main things that God's like, hey, you did great everywhere else, but hey, you didn't do good here. We all have to go through that judgment. So that's what I was thinking. What does God require of me to give me the good and faithful servant medal on my chest? Which, of course, you don't get one. That would be pride. But you understand what I'm saying. So the problem is when it comes to in faith, when it comes to, if God gives you the money, then you've got to really be sure you're spending it on the right thing. But if God gives you the thing, then you've got the faith to know God gave this to me, and it doesn't matter what happens or what's going on. God did this, and then we're getting through. We're going to live there, or we're going to do something or whatever, as in the same thing. So, you young ones, if you're looking at marriage, if you're looking at commitment, think about that. Think about that. Is God telling you this is the one? And don't go around saying, oh, God told me, God told me. I'm not talking about that God told you. I'm talking about the somber admission, God spoke to my heart. And, because, boy, I'll tell you, God had to speak to my wife's heart, or she would have never stuck with me. And and then, like, if God hadn't done what he did with us for this, to get this bug, I probably wouldn't have put as much money into it as I have. I probably would have, gotten rid of it. Got something that was a little less trouble. But we knew God gave us this. And you know what? I think it's worked out cheaper in the long run. I'm getting 35 miles to the gallon. I mean, who gets that? So that's where we're at. How do we know we're in faith? How do we know we're not, I got this, God, I got this? Well, first of all, if you've pushed God away. Okay, I got this, God. I got this. Hey, I got this. Hang on, I got this. So if you're pushing, you're not wanting to hear advice, then you don't got it. Anyway, so that's where I wanted to be this week, just to enjoy some time with you and know that as the sun goes down and the mosquitoes come out and the cool air is starting to come back to the mountains. This was the first morning in probably 3 or 4 weeks where it wasn't hot and the air conditioning wasn't already running. Honestly, it was like probably the end of May. The air conditioning didn't even come on until the end of May. And then 2 weeks into June, it was on during the day. And now into July and probably, part of August, it'll run. But that's all. Honestly, there's like one mediocre cold month, really cold month in winter here in the Smokies. Then there's 1 month of just really cold. Then the next month, it's not so bad. It kind of goes with the equinox, It's like, wow, it's really getting cold in December. Then December 25th, the equinox, which they pick to be like the darkest day of the year, the darkest and longest night of the year, is the night we celebrate the birth of the light. Coincidence? I don't think so. And then after that, the sun starts moving back and things start warming up by the end of January. You have a rough January. Early February, things start to break, and then by You know, March, you're still in coats and jackets, and then April, you're in jackets, and then May, you're finally, you know, out of the winter. It takes a while. So, anyway, that's all. What a beautiful night. And we are enjoying our recovery, and it's happening. Thank you for praying for Joy's foot. And we think it's kind of more than a coincidence that it's the same foot, and that there were circumstances around it that are similar to the circumstances around the last time she heard it. So we're just being more cautious, you know, and I'm going to be even more obedient to the voice and the timing of God than ever before. I feel like, you know, when you know how it is, you're like, wow, they're ministers and they had something go wrong, and you know, I mean, they're supposed to be, you know, really believe in God, and she broke her foot. What is up with that? You know, well, I'll tell you what's up with that. It has to do with sequence and consequence. Now, the word con means contrary. So you've got sequence, and then you've got consequence, and that's where we get the word consequence, because it's basically from the consequence. I mean, from the sequence. So when you have your life and your daily life and your prayer time and all the things that you have moving along in sequence, the way God has planned for it to go, you have very few repercussions. You are protected, you are blessed, you are under the spout where the glory comes out. You're paying your gifts, you're giving tithes, you're being a blessing to people with, you know, intangible gifts and help and love. And so when you're doing that, you are in the sequence of God. But when your head starts turning and you start getting pulled off to the side, just one more this or one more that, or, you know, in my case, you know, just making a left turn I shouldn't have made. Just because all of a sudden at the last second I thought, oh, they sell ice cream down there on that side road right there. I think I'm gonna stop and grab a cone. It wasn't that good. The thing that Joy bought wasn't that good. You know, we wasted our money, and it's like, I shouldn't have made that left turn. And I know that got me out of the sequence of God for the night. Now, had I realized I'd lost my sequence and that I needed to stop and pray and realign with what God wanted to do with the rest of the evening, I may have avoided it then too. I truly believe, you know, everybody says, well, you know, not everybody, but most people say, hey, there's some things you can't prevent. You know, there's some Daniels in the lion's den, there's some Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego that we all go through and things like that. And I always say, yeah, but there's also the scripture, Luke 10:9-10, I shall tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing by any means shall harm me. And to me, all the power of the enemy is the power to injure, the power to cause things to go wrong. But if I get out of that sequence, then possibly I have opened myself up. So be careful. Be careful. You know, I mean, I'm not saying you have to drive 55 or whatever, but I'm just saying be careful. Be in sequence of what God is doing and being good timing and things like that. All right. Well, lots of good happening. And I'm trying to think of anything else that we needed to know. I'm painting again this Friday at the Sky Park, and we may even have another opportunity after this. And I trust that you know we are not disqualified. Before God, we appear approved of. Approved of. Isn't it nice to be approved of? Everyone needs to be approved of now and again, you know. That's a good feeling, to be approved of. And you see, we're approved of by God. We're approved of. And we have been made righteous by him. But that takes a sequence of events and living in the sequence of God, not in the consequence. Some people say, well, God reigns on the just and the unjust. The sun rises and falls on the good and the bad. Yeah, God just generally in that way is very true. There's a lot of good people that have died in hurricanes and tornadoes. And it's not worth trying to get into what happened there, because I happen to know that there are people that have seen hurricanes turn on the radar. Joy and I have seen the radar on where we were staying, the clouds literally part and go around us on the radar, and we took pictures of it as we prayed and rebuked the storm. So don't feel you're entitled to every circumstance, and that that's just the way it is. That's not the way it is. And this reminds me, I showed this as a child. What is this? This is a spider doing push-ups on a mirror. I don't know, that's one of the first funny things I can ever remember being showed by my sister. Speaking of sisters, our goddaughter's sister passed away this week to cancer, so be in prayer for her. And then, of course, Sky Park Friday, 11 to 2. Saturday, around 6:30, we're going to be live again. We got all of our moon pies in the mail today. And I've got to get that painting mailed off too. All right, so bless you, love you. Look forward to next time I get to see you. And have a good night, good night, good night. And remember, we love you, but Jesus loves you more. Good night, good night.